Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang mag-ibig, elas ang sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng mag-ibig, sa mandulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nanagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng bagaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nagkikinig, ang bituin at karagyan kailan pamay di magkikinig. Lumalang araw ng walang pagsingka, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming bigaya na pagkay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Welcome to the fourth day of our Web Talks, a campus journalism webinar series with the State Collegian, the Jose Rizal Memorial State University, in partnership with the Mass Communication Department of Western Mindanao State University. Rana Maria Villano, a second-year mass communication student, taking up Bachelor of Arts in Broadcasting at Western Mindanao State University. Today, it is my pleasure to proudly introduce to everyone present in this web talk our remarkable guest speaker on today's discussion for feature writing. Born on August 25, 1992 at Dipolog City, our now 28-year-old speaker took up Bachelor of Science in Mass Communication at Ateneo de Zamboanga University, for which he graduated as cum laude, or primarily as a 2013 batch valedictorian. Currently, he is taking up International Master's Program in International Studies as a graduate student at the National Chengchi University in Taipei, Taiwan. Our guest speaker served as the senior technical staff of the executive director of the Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process. He also became the project evaluation officer at the Performance and Projects Management Office of the Cabinet Secretary by the Office of the President of the Philippines in the Malacanang Palace. He also became a learning manager of the Graduate School of Public and Development Management at the Development Academy of the Philippines in Ortigas Center, Pasig. He has been recognized with several awards, especially during his years as a student, that include the Top 3 Maria Clara Labregat Award of Excellence, Zamboanga City Young Peace Weaver Award, Ateneo de Zamboanga University Service and Peace Awards. This, however, does not end there, because our incredible guest speaker also received the Outstanding Dipolognon Award in News category during the 98th Araw ng Dipolog, plus the Ateneo Gold Medal for Fine Arts within 2 consecutive years. And he was also recognized for the Kapayapaan Director Award. Then again, ladies and gentlemen, our guest speaker for today's web talk, all the way from Taipei, Taiwan, let us all welcome Mr. Ryan Victor P. Miranda.
Hello, hi. Thank you very much for that introduction. I am really happy, and I am also at the same time nervous that this is my first time to be talking to a group of campus journalists and mass communication students from Tampilisan, the Jose Rizal Memorial State University, and as well as students from Western Mindanao State University. Hi, so I would just like to share my slides, but I cannot post disabled. I would like to ask from the host to please make me a co-host so that I can share my slides to the group.
It's okay now, Ryan.
Hi, sir.
Hi. You can screen share now.
All right. All right. Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. So once again, Good afternoon, mayong hapon sa tanan, and my name is Ryan, and I graduated from Zamboanga City, and now I am currently in Taipei, Taiwan for my graduate studies. And I'd also like to greet my teachers from Ateneo de Zamboanga who are also here with us today, Sir JR and si Ma'am Sylvie. And yeah, also to the viewers from the social media, and thank you very much for having me today. So for the past 3 days, I understand that you already had some webinar lectures of news writing and how is it going to pursue your advocacy during the this very critical and very uh, difficult situation we have now, not just only in our community, in our country, but as well as the other parts of the world. So today, I am going to talk about feature writing, and I am very glad that I am invited by my former professor from Ateneo, si Sir JR, and that I would also be able to share something that I have learned as a mass communication student almost a decade ago. Oh my God. So the title of my lecture this afternoon is Feature Writing and What's Beyond the Standard. So, as a backgrounder, I am a product of campus journalism, and especially if you come from the different municipalities of Zamboanga del Norte, you might have recognized my mother. Her name is Rosemary Patangan Miranda, and I grew up going to some parts of Zamboanga del Norte for their organization's annual activity, which is campus journalism. So I've been to Shokon, to Labason, to Tampilisan, to Serios Menya. And with that, I kind of grew the love for feature writing specifically, basically started there. So as you can see here in the picture, these are school paper or school publication of the different universities and colleges in Zamboanga del Norte. And then in 2009 to 2013, I took up mass communication in Zamboanga City. Well, basically because at that time when I had to choose which course to take, it was actually my interest for journalism was at its peak by the time when I applied for admission in Zamboanga City. And also, my sister took up mass communication also, and she's 2 years older than me, and so that was a sort of a good decision also for our part because I do not need to buy books for my consumption, but I just need to use the books that my sister used when she was also taking the course. And the third reason was actually because I did not want to have courses anything related with mathematics and sciences, but still we ended up taking some sciences courses like biology or chemistry anyway. So here I also had my internship, my radio internship in a radio station in Dipolog City, as well as my print internship in Dipolog City. But I had my TV and broadcasting internship at ABS-CBN in Manila, specifically at News and Current Affairs. So you can see here picture of uh, Sharon Zambrano and Jeff Ganoy when I had my OJT there. All right, so let me start my short lecture on feature writing by sharing this article written by Sammy Gibbons. She is actually the editor-in-chief of the Daily Cardinal, and it's also the official publication of the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And she's also, like you, studying journalism and creative writing. And she says that campus journalists actually spend a lot of hours in their office, laying out pages, editing stories, creating graphics, balancing our budget, and much more. So I think this would somehow resonate our experience as campus journalists and now as communication students. So we spend most of our time discussing with our classmates what to do with our project. And this is usually a group project. So we cannot go away with our classmates, or like at the very least teamwork activity. So there may be some differences in terms of how we approach journalism, but you have had heard the lecture from our previous speakers since Monday, and then they have also shared different types of writing when it comes to journalism. So to now I would like to share to you something about feature writing. So growing up, I spent a number of like weekends listening to different lectures, and specifically, I fell in love with this particular type of writing, which is called feature writing. But we would want to ask ourselves, what is really feature writing, and how is it different from other types of writing in the very sense? So feature writing is actually a different style of news. And then when you had your lecture with Ma'am Yen was also my former teacher in Zamboanga. And I can remember that when we had our first year in the mass communication program, she was actually our first teacher who taught us the very basics of journalism, and specifically news writing. So what makes feature story different from news story? So to put it in a simple definition, like I said earlier, it's a different style of news, and it is also a different take to journalism, and it is meant to grasp our attention. You can see here in the slides, a feature story is a prominent news story written like a piece of short fiction. But you have to take note that although this is written in a more creative style than compared to news writing, but it is never a fiction. So it always has to still use the principle of journalism, which is factual reporting, but with the creative freedom of short story writing. So ang ine-emphasize natin dito ay more on the writing style, but still the principles of journalism is still there, which is also feature story is factual and never a fiction. Feature stories also place a greater emphasis on facts that have human interest, and it puts people in the story, and they make the reader think and care. So these things that journalists wanted to talk about or write about, but also keeping in mind the audience. So when you write a feature story, you have to think about a particular group of audience. You already have in mind who will be reading this feature story that I will be writing, or to whom am I sending this message, or to whom am I conveying this message to a particular group of audience. But we also have to consider or remember that when we write a news, or when we write a feature story, we have to also consider that there's this principle of inclusivity. So we refrain from writing that examples like "I am lucky enough" or "we all know that." So we do not generalize all our readers. All right. So how do we know that what we are reading is a feature article or a feature story? So we look into the aspects of a feature story. Number one, a feature article is never meant to deliver news firsthand. So etong mga feature writing, hindi to siya pwede dun sa mga articles na kailangan like breaking news or pinaka-importante or the first news that will be released from a particular social media platform or your newspaper, and it does not necessarily be on the cover of every newspaper like national daily or even weekly newspaper. So it is not meant to deliver news firsthand. Its main function is to humanize, add color, to educate, to entertain, and to illuminate. So unlike the news article that you have to work on the principle of inverted pyramid, wherein all the important facts should be on the the top of your news article. But for feature writing, you can actually make way with some sort of mixing the information, as long as it is still very coherent enough that your readers can understand what you're trying to convey through your feature story. Next, it recaps major news that was previously reported. So you can use feature story when you want to supplement something. For example, if there's like a breaking news, that's a hard news, that's news writing, but you can follow up an article using feature writing that should somehow supplement the major news that was previously reported. Another one is that it also can be a profile for a particular person or a prominent person in your community or in your country, like our national leaders, our local leaders, or our administrators in our schools or universities. So this could be a good aspect of feature writing. Next, it explains events that move or shape the news, as well as it analyzes what is happening in the world, nation, or community. And this also can be a how-to article, or as it could teach an audience how to do something like gadgets or new technology. And it could also suggest better ways to live, like nutrition and trends like TikTok or and other stuff that is not really that, although it's also very important, but not as important as breaking news. And these are types of feature stories. When you try to read something from newspaper or from social media, you would know right away if this is a feature story by looking at its type. So it could be a personality profile. So in either type of feature story, good reporting is still essential. And then you also have to, like the principles of journalism, you also have, although you are writing a different style of news, a more creative one, but you still have to do good reporting, and you have to collect as many details as possible, because you have to describe people, settings, feelings, and the elements of storytelling is still there. And yeah, like I said earlier, it could be a personality profile. And then this one here is a very important ingredient of feature writing, the human interest stories. So what are the things that we usually relate ourselves to, or that could attract our attention? So sometimes profiles can also be human interest stories, especially if this a particular person did something that can also be interesting in our community. And then we have trend stories. These are the type of feature stories that could somehow become popular, like over a day, or like when you wake up in the morning and then there's this like activities or trends that became viral or like trending, or reports such as this. And also it could be an in-depth stories that it provides a detailed account well beyond a basic news or feature story. All right, so let's take a look at this example. So this is a type of a feature story, specifically a profile, personality profile feature story. So the title of this feature article is Guantanamo's Darkest Secret, and this is written by Ben Taub in 2019. So basically, this article talks about a prison guard in Guantanamo Bay, that's in Cuba, wherein actually this is where most high profile prisoners are being put into custody, especially after the 9/11 attack in the US. So this article is, you can see that the title palang you would know what is the darkest secret of Guantanamo. And so you would want to read the article based from the title that you have just read here. So it will then take you to the lead. The U.S. military prison's leadership considered Mohamedo Salahi to be its highest value detainee, but his guards suspected otherwise. So you can see here, there are contrasting emotions from this lead alone. I mean, you have here a profile of the detainee, but you also have here some sort of perspective, or the guard says otherwise. So this article actually is the recent winner of the 2020 Pulitzer Prize, winner in feature writing. So if you may be familiar with, this is actually the highest, well, one of the highest award giving body for like distinguishing feature writing, giving prime consideration to quality of writing, originality, and concision. So like you, the writer is still actually 29 years old, and then like when he wrote this, and then for a very outstanding feature writing and and writing style, and then it was also a very interesting perspective of tackling this issue on like a very heavy issue, but the way he presented it in his feature article is that it made it very like alive, even if like you haven't been to that place, but you can still feel that as you read this article. It is very vibrant and is very vivid. It's like you're also there interviewing this guard, and also like his experience being in Guantanamo in Cuba. All right, so in writing feature stories, actually, there are no restrictions on your subject matter, and you are only limited by your uncommon circumstance. Yeah, by your imagination. So examples like this are very interesting, and as well as like a human interest story is there. So let's look at another example, and here you can see the title is Circus Science, Putting Big Ideas Under the Big Top. So this is the title, and then by just looking at the title alone, you can see that it catches our attention. So what is circus science? So you would know, you would want to know what is circus science. So here the title, and in most instances, the readers will actually recall more the title than the content itself. So if you are planning to write a feature story, you have to really think about a title that is very catchy, that could really attract the attention of the reader in the first place. Next, let's go to the lead. And this is also a very interesting part of the feature article, because it could make or break your audience's attention. So the lead is actually the opening sentence, and it holds the reader's attention by using specific interest arousing words. So here in the example, it says, "Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please." So by that lead alone, I think you would still want to continue reading, because you are interested of what this article is all about. And it could the lead also, later in the next slides, I will also discuss and share to you what are the types of lead that you could somehow use or utilize when you start writing your feature story. And then we have here the not graph. The not graph is actually the paragraph next to the lead, and it is the summary of what the story is going to be about. Although you made a very interesting title, and then you had a lead, but it's not really direct. So you have to have the not graph, which is like a one paragraph, or like it's a summary of what your article is all about. So you can see here, although only instead of elephants balancing on balls, juggling monkeys on cables, and lions jumping through rings, th- these circus has science experiments. So here in this part, you would know that the author is not really talking about like literal circus, but more of like a science experiment, a forum or activity that is likened to be like a circus. All right, so let's go to the types of lead. There are many ways and creative ways to how we can come up with a very effective and good lead. Sometimes it could be a narrative lead. Basically, it tells a story, like just how you make a story or like start storytelling to your friends or to your uh, audience. Next, it could be descriptive. It describes a scene, a person, or subject. So this is a very good exercise also of your writing style, because you have to make sure that once you write, the words that you describe or the words that you use are very appropriate, and that could somehow really capture the description of what you would want to describe, either a scene, a person, or an object. Next is a direct quote. You can also use direct quote as a type of lead or as a start of your article, because it somehow encapsulates the emotion of your whole, or the emotion of your whole article or your story. And then we have here starting statement, something that could create drama or causing momentary surprise. Like, for example, the one we had earlier, wherein we thought that the feature story is all about circus with animals and similar to our imagination of circus. But instead, it's not a real circus, but more of like a science experiment activity. And then we have contrast and compare earlier with our first example that won the Pulitzer Prize. There's a contrasting image or emotions coming from different characters or different profiles of or people that is being the subject of the story or of your feature story. This could be a twist wherein a reader sets up for one mood and then twists it, and then it surprises the reader. So these are some of like the examples of types of lead that you can use. All right, so here let's go back to the example earlier. So this is the second half of the article, and we know about using quotes in the sentence in writing the feature story. So when we use quotes, it could somehow add more emotions in the news in the feature story. And getting direct quotes is essential for a good feature, because you can somehow provide a different way of presenting not just similar sentence construction, but also you also be able to share to the reader your writing style varies from paragraph and from sentence to another sentence. So this is something that I had like discussed earlier, and this is the structure, which is the organizational pattern wherein the author uses to synthesize, and that is to establish also relationship between relevant pieces of information. So you can see here the example about the circus and then the science experiment, that the author actually interchangeably made use of the quotes and then another sentence and then followed by another quote. So in most feature stories, feature writers continue alternating quotes and transitions all the way through the story. And then for your last part of your feature story, you have to end your feature article with something that is also again very interesting, like this one. And here she made the author made use of using the quote as a ending of her feature article. So this example actually won the 2013 Lasallian Scholarium Award. So it is an award uh, that affirms media practitioners in their pursuit of truth and excellence, as well as in their desire to engage the public in meaningful discussions and actions. So this is she's a writer from GMA News Online, and this actually won in 2013 for like a feature story on youth and education. All right, so this part here actually talks about how is it important for campus journalism or as a student of communication in this era or in this time of misinformation and distrust in the media. So I was also present yesterday. Yesterday about the lecture of Ma'am Sylvie on development communication and how is it important that we somehow use our the skills and the talents that we have in trying to convey the message through the different platforms such as social media. So it is also the same principle with writing feature stories. And at the very essence of being campus journalists and communication students, and if you're also organizing your student publication, I mean, the very essence of it is that it should somehow provide students with understanding the national topics, the difficult topics from your community, and you have to present it in a way that university students or your community of students would somehow understand what you're trying to convey. And it could also spark positive change in the campus community. Another one is that it focuses critical eyes on university issues, although I understand that in some instances, most of universities, they do not have a really good relations, especially with student organization and student publication. But it could also be a very good opportunity to really work together for the student population to really know what's happening inside the university or your academic environment. Another one is that it fosters collaborative learning environment. And last one is that being in the campus journalism or being a communication student actually provides new ideas and skills each day so that what you have learned in your classroom or the skills that you have learned would somehow be helpful and beneficial to the wider community when you actually work on your feature writing article. All right. All right. So before I would end my presentation, I have here, like on your slide, a book, and the title of the book is On Writing Well. And allow me to share this book to you. I haven't really finished reading this, but this was given to me by my boss 2 years ago before I left for Taiwan. And then I was very happy because she gave me a book that is classic guide to writing nonfiction. And in the first page, she wrote here, Dear Ryan, you write very well, but you could be more. So by this message alone, I know I am still like learning. I still learn a lot from the mentors that I have, from the professors that I meet here in my graduate program. And this is very important. I mean, this is a realization for me that writing is really hard. I mean, there are times, I'm not sure if you can agree with me, there are times that when you really want to write, but you cannot write. You cannot just. I read this somewhere, and she says that you cannot just really depend on your motivation or your passion in writing. But when that day comes that you wake up and then you do not have the motivation and the passion, you have to really depend on discipline. So it's just like the same thing with writing. So writing is also a discipline, and it is really a hard work. And it says here that a clear sentence is no accident. Very few sentences come out right the first time or even the third time. Remember this in moments of despair. And if you find that writing is hard, it's because it is hard. So I always think about it. And then now that I am trying to finish my final paper, final study, thesis, I always remember this quote from the book, and that somehow it could help me like get back on track in writing. So like how a feature story would end, I would tie the last slide back to the first slide. So in the title, I ask feature writing what's beyond the standard, and then it's still a different style of news writing, but beyond the standard is writing well. It doesn't mean that you write well because you have a very good command in the English language. As long as my first language is Cebuano Bisaya. Bisaya ang ako ang unang language. And then it doesn't matter if what language you are using, as long as you have the principles of good writing, the journalism principles in writing, then you could be more. So with that, I'd like to end this presentation by thanking everyone for your participation, and I hope to have a fruitful discussion with you after this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Maybe we can entertain questions now from our participants.
Mhm.
Hi, sir. Good afternoon po.
Hello.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you for giving us a, very informational discussion. So, you have mentioned po a while ago about the idea that there are no restriction in feature writing, and by that, we are only limited by our imagination, right?
Mhm.
However, sir, in writing a content to our feature story, are there any things that we have to avoid, of course, apart from grammatical errors, in order to give an effective feature story? Thank you po.
Mhm. All right. So that's a very good question. Um, there are still things that we need to avoid when it comes to writing a feature article. Number one is that when we really want to write a feature article, we still have to practice the basic principles of journalism, which is factual. So it is never a fiction. So hindi pwede yung made up lang na character like the one we normally do in a literary writing. So feature writing is not a literary writing. So like the number one that I can think of that we should not do is to not write something or for a feature article that is not factual.
Okay po. Thank you po.
Kim,
Thank you, Dari.
can you check if there are questions on Facebook, Kim?
Okay, yes, sir. Can I also ask? By the way, thank you, Vic. Thank you so much for the
Okay.
very wonderful talk. And everyone who are now watching us live on Facebook, you can comment your questions, you can tag me, but there are people who are tagging me, but still I cannot see their comments. So please, officers who are present today, can you please help me in looking for those comments, Sir Jay? Tinuod ba to? Na-block na ko.
Yeah, sige. Questions? Or feel free to just talk. How are you, Ryan? While waiting for questions.
Well, I'm doing good. Well, actually, before I came here, so we just went to the hospital, so we just got the vaccination. So hopefully,
Wow. Sana all na lang jud mi diri sa Pilipinas, no?
hopefully, magiging okay na rin yung situation sa atin.
We have a question here, Vic, from Abdul Karim Alian.
Mhm.
How do you consistently write well in feature writing? Is it just through practice po, or there are fundamentals which you keep at heart po, sir, to this day?
Mhm. Um, well, that's also a very good question. I think I myself is still like learning every day, and I cannot say that I am really good in writing because there are really a lot of challenges when you really try to write something. But I think the key uh, goal there, or the key thing that you need to really work on, is to continuously practice and then read a lot and then try to uh, examine the writing style of your favorite writer. And that way you can also get the like style, not really like really get the writing style of your favorite writer, but at least you get to see the different learning writing styles of this writer, so that you when you write you could somehow pattern and later on develop your own writing style.
Thank you so much, Vic. I have another question here from Hasana Ilyasin. Good afternoon, sir. I have a question. Advice on how to come up with an engaging title for a feature writing.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the title, I think it also takes a lot of practice and a lot of creativity when you want to really get a good grasp of getting a new, like a very interesting and attractive title. But I think more like I've mentioned earlier, we can see a lot of write-ups in different types of platform. We see social media, and then in the traditional medium like print or like books. I don't know, print, and then well, radio. There's also like for TV platform, we can also see examples of feature stories. If you're familiar with um, Rated Gay or Kapuso Mo, Jessica Soho. So those are TV news or TV programs that are actually feature articles. So it's kind of like sometimes like lighter side of news writing or lighter side of journalism, but it's still very important. Like for example, what we have now, like in terms of the COVID pandemic, you can write news article about the number of cases in a day, but when you try to write at an angle in a feature story, maybe you can write something about the if you have noticed, there's a news or a feature news about this young boy, or like he's a student, he's studying in Manila, but since there's lockdown and since he cannot go home to his hometown in Samar by public transportation, so he used his bike, and for 10 days he rode his way back to his hometown in Samar. So this is actually a very good feature article or feature story that you can somehow supplement your news story about COVID. And yeah, and I think you have to really develop this different angle of seeing things. If this is a news article or if this is a news story, you can. There are actually a lot of stories surrounding this, and you can use that as your uh, essay, or I mean your feature story.
Ma'am, Ma'am Sylvie commented, amen to read a lot. We have a question, Ryan. Good afternoon, sir. I have a question po. What makes something po worthy of being written as a feature story? From Christine Paman. What
All
makes
right. So
something po worthy of being written as a feature story?
I think one of the principles of feature story is that you can really write almost anything as long as it somehow relates to your particular group of audience or the group of people that you would want to convey your message. So, for example, if you would want to write still something about, okay, let's go back to the example of COVID related stories. Maybe you can somehow write a a story of medical frontliners, their stories of dedication and sacrifices during the pandemic. So that could be somehow like at very timely, very relevant. At the same time, it uh, touches our emotions when we read these kind of stories. So this is still factual because it is happening. Dili lang ni siya kaya atong gihimo-himo, but these are actually real stories of real people in this like very difficult situation during the pandemic.
Another question, Ryan. Uh, what should be the heart or the best foundation when writing a feature story if the facts of the sources was just lifted through the internet? Because mostly people could end up plagiarizing without them noticing through paraphrasing the story.
Mhm. All right, that's a very good question. Again, we go back to the very basic principle of how we gather data. Although we are given more freedom to write in a way that we can be more creative with our feature story, but when it comes to data gathering, we still have to validate our information. And it also depends on what type of feature story you are writing. So if you're writing a personality profile, then first-hand information could be very essential in gathering your data. So it could be an interview or reaching out to the source like firsthand. But in terms of like other sources, you can actually get sources from the internet as long as you cite it in a way that you wouldn't be accused of plagiarizing someone's work.
Another question, Ryan. Good afternoon, sir. This is a feature. Is a feature writer can be sued of libel when though you are just simply telling the truth in your article?
All right. So yeah, I mean, once you are actually a practitioner of uh, like any form of uh, news media or as a feature writer, I think in my opinion, I think you can still be sued if there is something that is not or is libelous in the first place. I think Professor Sir J can also share your expertise since you were our media law and ethics teacher. Can a feature writer be sued?
Yeah. Of course, that's libel. Being sued of libel is part of the job. If you are a journalist, whether you write hard news or soft news, um, it's a possibility, no? But take note always of the four elements of libel, diba? Um, that there has to be a false statement purporting to be a fact, so that is what Ryan has been emphasizing earlier. That though it's feature, but it's based on facts. It's based on what is true. It's not a manufacture. You do not manufacture facts, diba? You do not manufacture the information that you put in your article. So that's the first element, no? False statement purporting to be a fact. Then second is publication. And publication, that's given because when you write an article, it gets published, diba? And fault, that is amounting to negligence, and the damages, and also that the person defamed is identifiable. So if those elements are present, then there's a possibility that you will be sued and your case will stand in court. But if your story is based on facts, it's factual, it's based on what is true, then there's nothing to be afraid of. Um, I hope I answered your question. Um, we have another story. We have another question, Ryan.
Mhm.
Sir, can we use symbolism po for sa feature writing?
Oh yeah. That's also I also want to know if like the term that you use for symbolism is the same with the symbolism or the type of writing we use for literary.
Yeah,
Yes,
Mr.
Santos. Oo. Angelo, Lloyd, Angelo Santos. Are these the same? Are you referring to
Yes,
literary
ma'am. Yes,
classic?
ma'am.
Yeah. I think we can use styles in literary as long as still we go back to the very essence of feature story, which is very factual. But in terms of using style, we can somehow use uh, some literary devices.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
We have a
Salamat po.
question from Facebook from Muhammad Amil. Thank you so much, sir, for that impressive presentation. My question is, in writing a feature article, sir, how can we make sure to balance the story with no biases?
Okay, so this is where featured story comes in as a different style of news writing because that is how we kind of differentiate feature writing from other forms of writing such as editorial or the opinion page because no matter somehow well I think other writers who write feature story, they could still somehow be providing opinions or bias form or angle, but at least these authors or these writers somehow provide uh, opinions from both sides, and it has still to be very objective, but it actually somehow depends on the writer or the yeah um it could it should not be biased, but some feature writers would want to like do an in-depth story about a particular thing or a particular person, but it has to balance the opinion from other sides so that it would still somehow be considered objective.
Thank you, thank you. Another one, sir, what can you say or advise to those people na nawalan na ng passion sa pagsusulat?
Oh, okay. Yeah, these are very common occurrences if you're a communication student. I mean, the more you read a lot, and then the more you discover some styles of very well-known uh, journalists. I personally have that kind of feeling before when I was in college, and then well, I always go back to the very essence of why I really wanted to do this craft. I mean, we had our own personal dreams and the dreams of our family. So I always go back to that very essence why I am doing this in the first place. And then I was listening to Mom Sylvie yesterday, and then it always reminds me of like the years that we had as communication students in Zamboanga City. I mean, like I really like development communication personally, and there are days that ay mawawalan ka talaga ng motivation or passion to write. But as long as you continue to really work on your craft, take a break, rest if you must, but never uh, like let go of the dream that you really want to pursue, especially if you really want to become a good writer. Although if you would not end up being uh, as a practitioner of journalism, but I think as a communication student, like I'm not sure, but all I think generally all organizations and institutions would need people who would have a good command of communication, especially in conveying this institution or this agency or these organizations communications. So yeah, just go on and just keep practicing.
Thank you, Vic, for that very inspiring answer. So I'm sure those who are aspiring writers out there are now very much eager to write and start their day writing. So here's another question from Erica Javier. Good afternoon, sir. With the current situation that our country and other countries are struggling with, in what way do you think a feature writer can be of help, especially to the mental health of people?
Okay. Well, like most writings, I think feature story has the most, for me personally, has the most impact because it really targets the emotions of those who are reading your feature story. It somehow gives hope that the things that I am experiencing now at the height of the pandemic is not really the things that only I experience, but through this feature story, I can also say that there are also people who are experiencing the same difficulties and challenges with this pandemic. So this feature story holds a very important role in terms of bridging one story to another, and I think it is a very important piece of work as a journalist that you would be able to somehow give and provide hope to those who are somehow losing hope with the things that are happening right now.
Thank you, Vic. Do we still have questions, sir, from the other live?
Wala tayong question sa other live. Chat box, wala na rin tayong question sa chat box.
We have questions here sa Facebook Live,
Okay.
sir. Pero these are just repetitions
Okay.
from other questions that were already given. So I will not ask this anymore.
Okay. Sige. Ryan, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I know you're very busy because you're writing your thesis. I know you're stressed out with your thesis already, but you really prefer to be with us to share your knowledge with us this afternoon. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kim?
Yes, on behalf of the Western Mindanao State University College of Liberal Arts, we would like to thank you, Mr. Ryan Victor Miranda, for sharing with us your knowledge and your expertise in feature writing. And also, I would like to thank Mr. Joseph Roger Subong, my former instructor in Ateneo de Zamboanga, for being kind enough to partner with the Mass Comm department in WEMSU in creating and in building this web talk, a campus journalism webinar series, because we don't have much of this, and I really appreciate it, sir. This is the fourth day of our web talk, but still I am looking forward for more. This is just the first wave, I believe. So
Yeah.
can we still have that second wave?
Hopefully we can have Ryan Mursha and Joseph Suarez for filmmaking, but they're so busy, no?
Yes.
medyo may conflict sa sa kanilang schedule. But hopefully for the second wave of webinars, we'll have them.
Yes, and siguro I hope that Sir Dexter de la Peña, I'm also knocking there.
Yeah. and and Doms Kabatit.
Yes, please, Sir Doms.
Yeah. Hopefully we can have them sa next wave. I forgot that this is the last day of our webinar, Kim.
Oo nga, sir. It has been so interesting.
So finale talaga si Ryan. Congratulations, congratulations, Ryan. Congratulations. You told me yesterday that kinakabahan ka, gikulbaan ka for this webinar.
Kulbaan ko actually because the previous lecturers are all my professors in Zamboanga. So I really look up to them, and then when I think of mass communication, I really think of them right away. And I am really grateful that they are very generous because like so I don't think I can be present here today. I'm sharing something that I have learned from my humble experiences with these very good and very generous professors in Zamboanga.
Yes, we learned a lot from you, sir. From Ma'am Yen, Ma'am Sylvie, Ma'am May. So it's worth it kayo, Rhino, atong padagan sa pag-meet sa deadlines kay Kuan, kay Sir DR.
Yeah, and then although if you do not really, I mean, we are communication students, but our reach and our skills and talents do not just really be boxed in campus journalism or in the media. You can really go anywhere. Like you can follow any career path that you would want to take, as long as we already have the skills in communicating, and that is very important. So practice.
Yes, thank you. Sir Jay, that is also one of our problems, I think, today. Kasi especially the parents, when they think, when their children will say that, I want to be in mass comm, muingon din sila nga, ay, mag-reporter, ay, mag-writer, and then no money from there. They are not thinking also of other fields where their children can also explore. So in mass communication, we are not just limited to being a writer or a reporter, but we have various fields that you can explore, such as PR, advertising, etc.
Banking. Oh. Okay. Yeah, that's true, because the study of communication now has broadened already. Before, we used to be BS mass communication, but now it's AB communication. So it's not just limited to mass communication. We have broadened it to communication. So if there's communication, then comm graduates can work there, diba?
Correct. Banking.
Yeah, Ma'am Sylvie said.
From Ma'am Sylvie.
Banking. The next talk must be from the banking sector. Of course, I know. Yeah, but he's very busy. Okay. Sige, maybe we can we can take pictures, group pictures. Participants, please turn on this is the most awaited part, no? Participants, kindly turn on your camera so we can have the gallery picture.
Hello
everyone, you can unmute yourself. Yeah. Maybe because this is the last episode, our last session. Please unmute yourself, then please talk. Diba? Wala namang bayad magsalita. Yeah, feel free.
Congratulations, Rai.
Hi, Ma'am Sibs. Oh, I see very familiar faces. Hello.
Congratulations, Kim and JR. More talks, the banking sector, the film industry should
We are
come
all
back.
rooting for the
And
banking sector.
yeah, I hope the banker is listening to us right now, like he did yesterday.
Is
And I'm
Kenny
also
around?
hoping that I don't know. I think he is listening sa mga Facebook live ninyo.
Okay.
And I really hope also na si Miss Ryan and si Direk Ryan and si Direk Seth and
Ah,
Direk Dexter,
the
'di ba?
problem,
Should be tagged along. Yeah.
yeah, the
They should
problem.
come and really bring along, no? Sila ni Liz Ken, care of Dexter.
True.
Sila ni ano,
So
sila nila. Sa mga artista, kailangan kasama nila pag we will have a talk para mas maraming participants.
Like now, Ma'am Sir Dexter is the DOP of ano to, Init sa
ah,
Magdamag.
yeah,
Yeah.
Ano
yeah.
yan? Teleserye?
So,
Series.
Okay.
yeah. So baka magkakaroon yung mga fans club dyan, nila Gerard. So mag-abang-abang na tayo, di ba?
Dapat for our next webinars, nasa ano na tayo, sa film naman tayo, diba?
Oo, yun. That would be an exciting time.
Dapat,
And then
dapat
we'll
ang
have to
introduce ng speakers, mga artista talaga.
feeling ko feeling ko kulang na ang ating Zoom. Baka mag-crash na ang Zoom pag ganyan ang ating
We'll
mga
we'll
speakers.
upgrade to Zoom that can accommodate more participants. From our participants, maybe you can also share your thoughts. Hala, nahilo man ang atong mga participants.
Nabuyong sila sa next wave, sir.
Wala na? Ryan, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Sir JR.
Welcome. So
And
maybe we
thank
can
you
end
too.
this? Okay na? We're
Sige, sir.
okay?
Bye, and thank you, everyone.
Okay, so participants,
Bye.
thank you for joining 4 days of webinar series. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you po.